I'm Daniel with etrailer, and today we're going to take a look at and I'm going to try to install the B&W Custom Underbed Installation Kit on our 2021 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. The most notable feature about this kit is you can take the ball and you can flip it around, and now you have full bed access. So you can throw sheets of plywood in here and use your bed. And to take this out, they give you a pin here so you can just pull this right out. And the square opening is compatible with fifth wheel hitches, so that'll just slide in there. And you can actually use a fifth wheel hitch as well. This is a 2 5/16 ball, and it has a total towing capacity of 30,000 pounds and a total vertical load limit of 7,500 pounds. So that's the amount of weight of pushing down on the ball in this direction. Now do always check your owner's manual and make sure you're towing what your vehicle can handle. Gooseneck trailers have really good turning radiuses, so they're perfect for short bed trucks like we have today. To flip over the ball of the gooseneck hitch or change it out to a fifth wheel, all you have to do is come to the driver's side and there's going to be a handle, pull out and turn down, that'll lock it in place, and now you can flip your gooseneck ball over. And to lock it back, you just pull up and it'll lock back in place. And before you slide this in, it's always a good idea to put some grease on it on the sides where it's going to make contact with the inner ring. And it's also a good idea to grease the ball regularly as well. This kit also has spring-loaded safety chain loops, so as you can see, they'll pull down flush to the bed. B&W is a great product. It's made here in the USA, and it's got really nice parts to work with. Now, that being said, this is very hard to install. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of places to torque and tighten down. So if that's not something you're interested in doing yourself, then please feel free to check out our dealer locator. We can find a professional in your area to get this done for you. But if you're looking to do it yourself, follow along and I'll walk you through it. We've already got our spare tire removed and I got our vehicle up in the air. And now I will remove our heat shield. I'm just using a 13mm socket. And I'm going to take all these screws out. And I'll get this set to the side for now. Next, we will have to cut the heat shield on under the bed here. But it does have dual exhaust, so I'm going to remove these rubber isolators just to give us some more working room. I have a 15mm socket. Just going to remove this bolt on either side, and then this lets me push it down a little bit. We now have to cut out the heat shield, and it's going to be this section right here. I'm going to just use an oscillator tool and cut as close as I can because we want this support member to be unobstructed. So I'm just going to use this and get this cut out. On this side of the heat shield, closest to the cab of the truck, there's going to be two fasteners. You can use a T25 Torx bit to get these out, but there's a ton of components in our way, so I'm just going to cut this side out as well. This was pretty difficult to get out. I used a combination of the oscillator and some tin snips, but I eventually got it free, and now I can remove this and this will not be going back on. Now I'm on the driver's side. I got a 13mm socket, and I removed this bracket that is housing our brake lines. I'm just going to let this drop down for now. It's going to be another bracket that's housing a couple of wires above the rear differential. And I'm going to use a 10mm socket. There's going to be two nuts on the back side of this plate. And you might have to remove some of these components to get to them. So get the first one. It's going to be another bracket that's housing a couple of wires above the rear differential. And I'm going to use a 10mm socket. There's going to be two nuts on the back side of this plate. And you might have to remove some of these components to get to them. So get the first one. And to get this bracket off, you're going to have to push it towards the driver's side. It is pretty secure in here. So I may need to bring a mallet out and get this off. Oh, as you can see, I kind of wiggled it back and forth to loosen it up. All that grime was getting it really stuck, but I got that loose. As you can see, I just push it to the driver's side and pulled it out. On the passenger side, there's going to be a wire harness that's traveling on top of the frame. I'm going to take a trim panel tool and get this fastener removed. I'll just push this down so we can get our bars across. I'm going to measure the center for our hole as per your instructions. Now I'm going to measure from the end of our bed, not the tailgate, and we do have a spray-in liner today, so you do want to make sure that you take that into account. So this is going to be about an 1/8 inch longer, so I'll add that to our measurement. And I'll put a mark, and then I'll center this between the wheel wells. Take a center punch and get that measurement one more time just to be sure, and mark where I'm going to drill. I'm going to make a pilot hole with a smaller drill bit right on our center of our hole here. Now I'll use a 4-inch hole saw to open this up. Use a file to clean these edges up. I'll now use a vacuum and get all this mess cleaned up. I'm just using a paint marker, and you can do this with spray paint as well, but I'm going to touch up all the bare metal just so this doesn't get rusted in the future. Now on the driver's side, I'm going to use a T15 Torx bit, and I'm going to take 3 screws out of the wheel well liner. And with those removed, it allows me to peel this liner back. I'm just going to stick it on top of the wheel to get it to hold there for me. Now I went ahead and set up 2 jack stands with just a sturdy board across, and I'm going to use this for when we put our center section up. Someone up here can clamp around that and get that held in position. This will make it a little easier to get this installed. I got the front cross member here. This is going to be the one closest to the cab, and I got one of my bolts. I'm going to push this through one of the holes, and I'm going to push down our rubber O-ring, and this will hold the bolt in place for us. This is going to be second from the end on our driver's side. And back on the driver's side, I'm going to peel this back a little bit just so I can get this into our frame. Once you slide it to this point, you're going to want to make sure the other side is supported on the passenger side frame. And I may have to go over there and make sure. Our frontmost bracket needs to be rotated, so I'm just going to use a pair of pliers. I'll rotate this up and get it pushed back slightly out of our way. We may have to rotate it again, but that's the orientation it will need to stay in for when we put our center section in. Now I got the center section, I got Jonathan up in the bed. I'm going to lift this into place. And this was extremely difficult to get this up here. It took us a good 10 minutes to get this situated, but what we did was we slid it up and then back into this pocket, and the front end was over here in this pocket, and then we rotated it until we could get it up and then slide it into place. Just kind of work with it. You can get it in eventually, and then Jonathan up top hooked this up, so now it's supporting the weight. And make sure when you're putting this in, your latch is going to be facing the driver's side. I got our rear cross member here, and it's going to have some threaded holes. And I'm going to take our hardware, I'm going to run it through all of these just to make sure this powder coat didn't get in there and gum it up. Just make sure everything's running smoothly. We can slide this into our frame now, and as you can see, the holes are offset, and you're going to want them to be closest to the bed of the truck or closest to the sky. So you want them offset up And I'm going to slide this in as well. In order to get this rear brace in, I had to lower our center section just a little bit just to get a little more room. But I went ahead and slid it in. It's supported on both sides, and now I can rotate it to how we want it. So I got it so the holes are facing up. They're closer to the top edge. And now I'll go back up top and get this tightened back down. And I'll just use this to tighten it back up. Make sure the hole is centered. With our center section tight against the bed, I can slide our front cross member forward now and get that bolt that we previously put in to line up. I want to make sure that doesn't come through. And now I'll get the hardware on. I'll put a flat washer, a locking washer, and a nut on the side. I'm going to have to push this a little through to get this on. And for the rear cross member with the threaded holes, you just want to take your bolt, your locking washer, your flat washer, and this is just going to thread directly into that. You may need to push up on it to get this to line up properly. But I'll do this for all the hardware on this side. Your kit's going to come with this spacer block, and your gooseneck should be tight up against the bed with our device. And if you experience some play in your cross members, then you'll most likely need this. If not, you won't. So this is optional, but today we have some play, so I'm going to scoot this in. I'm going to do this on either side and on the front cross members as well. Next, I'll take our U-bolts and I'm going to put these on our frame just in front of our jounce bumper. And you may need to remove this wire here. Now I'll take the U-bolt and slide it roughly around there on the frame. I'll do this on both sides. Now I got the carriage bolt that comes in the kit and a rectangular spacer block. To get that pushed through and get a fish wire attached. It's going to be a hole directly above your jounce bumper. I'm going to get this fish wire and push it through, and there's a hole directly on the other side of the frame, and that's what I'm using to pull this through. And I'm going to get the spacer block in first, and followed by our bolt. And now I'll get the bolt pulled through, and on the end of our fish wire, I'll put the oval spacer block. Get this on. That's going to sit within the oval cutout in our frame. And now I'll pull the fish wire off, and be sure to hold your bolt so it doesn't go back through the hole. And your kit comes with this square piece of metal. It's got kind of a serrated hole, and you just thread this on until it's tight. This will hold your bolt in place while we put our bracket on. These are the side plates, and they are side specific. The one that's on the driver's side will have a latch depiction. That's the side the latch is going to go on, but I'm going to go ahead and do the passenger side right now. Now I'll put our bracket in place, and I'll try and get the bolt we fed through the frame to go through this hole, and the U-bolt will go through these two holes. So it's a little hard to get this all lined up. I'll do my best. Get these two in there. And the bolt we put through the frame, I'll put our hardware on. Just going to put a washer, locking washer, and a nut. And our U-bolt did fall out, but I'll go through the other side and push that through. And for the part that goes into our cross members on the bracket facing the cab, I'll put a bolt through I'll get a locking washer and a nut. And for the cross member that goes towards the tailgate, it has a threaded hole, so I'll just get a locking washer and get this threaded in. With all of our hardware in place, we can now tighten and torque everything down. It is a good idea before you do this to hop up top and make sure that is square to your truck, because you don't want that to be cocked to one side. And now I'll start with the bolts that are in the center section, and I'll tighten this all down with a 19mm socket and wrench. Next, you want to come to the side of the vehicles and tighten the hardware on the side plates. The first one you want to do is the two that are going into your support brackets that go across the frame. So I'll get my socket on here and tighten these both down. The next one we're going to tighten down on both sides is going to be the one that's going through the frame, the one we fished through. Then we're going to tighten the U-bolts, and once everything's tightened down, I'll make sure it's still square to the vehicle and then come back through and torque everything down in that same order. I'm torquing these all to the specs and the instructions, and if you don't have a torque wrench at home, you can usually rent one from your local auto parts shop, or you can buy one from us at etrailer. Some of this hardware is going to be really hard to get to, so I would recommend getting a crow's foot. Just make this a little easier to torque down. Now we can install our latch pin release handle. And I'm going to go to the driver's side and I'm going to feed this in. It's going to be a U-shaped hole where we put our bracket. I'm going to feed this in, and there's going to be another hole that you're going to need to go through, and then I'll go underneath and get this attached. And that's the hole in the middle section that we went through, and I'm going all the way to our latch here with the spring on it. There's going to be a square hole. I'm going to get a small carriage bolt and get this through, and I'll get the nut on the back side. And I'll tighten this down with a 13mm socket. Now we're ready to drill out for our safety chain loops. I got a 1/2-inch drill bit, and I'm actually going to drill up through the bottom here, so there's going to be holes in your hitch. With all our hardware tightened, we can now take this off and get this set to the side. That rear hole back here was a little close to the gas tank, so what I did was I drilled a small pilot hole, and now I'm going to drill through the top on this one. And I wallared them out just a little bit by rotating the bit and test fit, and as you can see, we're all good. So I'll do this to both sides. And now I'll file them down if I need to. We're not looking too bad on most of these, so I'll get my paint marker and get that bare metal. I'll put the U-bolts back in and install the hardware underneath. And underneath here, you're going to want to put your spring on. It looks like a little Christmas tree. It's upside down. And then I'll put the nut on. And I'll get this tightened down just so it's flush with the end of our bolt. And I'll do this on the rest. And when you're putting all your components back, when you put your driver's side wheel well liner on, you're going to notice that it's going to cover up your handle. So all you have to do is cut out a little rectangle so you can access this. Now all that's left is to put some of those wire harnesses back that we took off, get the exhaust hangers reattached, get the spare tire up and heat shield, and then you're good to go. And once you put the Ball in, you're ready to start towing your gooseneck trailer. Now, if you have any further questions about if this kit's going to be right for you, then please feel free to reach out. And if you did decide to tackle this, then please let us know in a review or comment any tips or tricks you may have learned along the way. And that just about does it for the B&W Custom Underbed Installation Kit on our 2021 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Thanks for watching.